Hi, Chris. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for willing to do this.
No, thanks for having me. It's nice to virtually meet you.
Yeah, you too. So I know that you've done other interviews before. I don't want to like ask all the same things. But I guess would in terms of like uh professional acting, would the first start be the short film Murder in a Miniskirt?
Wow. Okay, already not going to ask all the same questions of previous interviews, and I love it. So actually first film was Fair Verona, which was the same time period of
Okay.
Murder in a Miniskirt, which was when I was in school at Florida State University, getting my degree in theater. I worked closely with the film school there, and specifically they do like their whole class kind of rotates on each other's films. So I had the privilege of being on several of that classes. I think it was like, oh, I don't want to age myself too much, but what would they have been? Maybe class of '09. Yeah. Anyway, um, so I did a few films kind of in quick succession, which was Fair Verona and yes, Murder in a Miniskirt, which both were a total blast.
Mhm.
And funny enough, pretty dark, you know, film school.
Well, it looks like outside of that, it looks like you've been in a kind of a good amount of like more darker horror themed short films.
It's interesting because, yeah, I'm a naturally pretty bubbly person. But yeah, I've gotten to do a lot of really fun, sick stuff, which is cool.
Because what was your experience on the escape plan?
Oh yeah, so the escape plan was great, and I did the producer and director are friends, who had me be the lead, the main character's girlfriend. And so I was actually a pretty small role in that film, but it was still really fun to be on set for, because also very dark and twisted, based on a Stephen King
Right.
novel. So yeah, pretty gnarly stuff.
All right, were you or are you a fan of like horror generally?
Yes, I'm a big fan of horror. My husband is not, and we have an agreement that I'm allowed to watch, or not allowed, but I'm at liberty to command the television at night, for the whole month of October, for as many horror movies as I can fit in. Um, any month other than that, we have to agree on what to watch, which is a very fair
Yeah.
agreement, I think. But yeah, I squeeze in as much as I can. I'm especially a big fan of horror comedy. I Simon Pegg, and anything he does is on top of my list. Shaun of the Dead and
Yep.
The World's End and stuff like that. So definitely love horror, and specifically horror comedy. Yeah.
And so this is probably obvious too, but was LA always the end goal for you?
Actually, not so obvious. So like I said, I got my degree in theater at Florida State. I'm from Florida, the other Sunshine State. And um, between junior and senior year, I did an internship in Los Angeles to kind of suss it out. I knew I was not meant for the cold weather of New York or Chicago. LA just seemed so far away, from home. So I wasn't really sure about it. I'm glad I did the internship, and it was a lot of fun being here, made a lot of great friends and did a lot of awesome work. But then was kind of like, okay, I think that was it for me, and went back to Florida, and I did professional children's theater for a couple years, touring around the state, mainly based in South Florida, but a little bit in Central Florida as well. And then I was uh, teaching at a children's theater summer camp. And then I was teaching at a middle school. And then I realized I was starting to go down a different road than what I really wanted to do. And so I called up a friend who lived out here, who was the writer and director of Fair Verona, my very first film, and was like, I think I want to come back out to LA. And she had a room for me, and the rest, as they say, is history, I guess.
Mhm. So is there a separate story too of how you got into SAG?
So actually, yeah. So I moved to LA, and then the first SAG project I worked on was in Florida, like 2 months after I moved here. So great excuse to go back and visit. And yeah, that was the first project I worked on that got me in the door, and that was April. Yeah, 2 years after, or 2 months after I moved here, which is wild. I love storytelling, so any way I'm allowed to do that through performance, I'm happy. I love doing voiceover because I tend I tended to, in my training on camera, get a lot of notes about like my face just says a lot without, even trying too hard. And in theater, it's very physical, and voiceover kind of ended up being this really beautiful marriage of the two, where I got to be very big and expressive, and yet it comes through a more obviously cinematic medium. So I do love voiceover probably the most for that. Um, but I would get on stage in a heartbeat, and I'm still auditioning regularly for all of those mediums.
Okay,
And I produced a short film and starred in it
right.
this past February. So yeah, definitely still love all of them.
Hmm. Yeah, I was gonna ask about that next. It's the little things, right?
Yes, The Little Things. I produced it and starred in it. That was my first time producing on that level. We crowdfunded about 10 grand for it, which was the most I've ever worked with, and was so happy to be able to employ people
Hmm.
given things that were going on, obviously, with the pandemic. And a major focus for me was to get to work with as many new people as possible. So I really branched out mostly through social media, with casting and or sorry, with crewing the project. And it was also really important to me that it be an all female endeavor. So everybody on the team was someone I hadn't worked with before. And what's wild is I find this is the way my life goes. Quite a few of them ended up being from Florida for no apparent reason. So I ended up having a lot of Floridians on the set, which was really cool. A little taste of home, I guess. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I was also secretly pregnant at the time. I was 4 months pregnant. I think math is hard. I gave birth in July, so
Okay.
whatever, that backtracks too. Um, but I like was telling people in person, not so secret that like I wasn't telling anybody, but the general public was not aware. So kind of like on set stuff would slip out. People were like, what? Wait, what? So it was also a fun treat to be harboring a little bit of a secret while I was doing that.
And do you have a personal preference when it comes to working on lighter project opposed to darker?
Oh, again, it's like choosing between kids. No, I love any of it. And I do find that ironically I guess that's not really fair to say. I was gonna say that like on the darker sets, it can be kind of a little bit more lighthearted behind the scenes, but I don't think that's really true because on comedic sets, it's usually pretty lighthearted behind the scenes. Um, but no, I love both. There's so much fun to be had in both kinds of stories. The things that you can kind of get into as a performer and as an actor. Um, you know, with the lighter stuff, I do find there's heavier improvisation, which is a lot of fun because when you know the character so well, you can kind of jump around and just exist in their skin. But with the darker stuff, it's really fun for me to get to see how much more a lot of times technically goes into it with,
Mhm.
from behind the scenes. I mean, getting to just kind of be a part of that is really nice.
Well, because one of my signature questions is always asking, what is the most emotionally involved headspace you've had to get into for any kind of project?
There's been a couple, but just because you mentioned it, I will say Murder in a Miniskirt was the first film. It's a dark comedy.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I had to get really emotional and into a dark headspace. So that one just sticks out to me. And then I will say that Shenhe is interesting because there's a lot of darkness to her, but then she has to kind of hold it all together. And so that was probably the most challenging emotional headspace to get into, of like to go there and then to cover up so much and to control so much that it's almost not shown so explicitly. That was a major challenge. Yeah.
And moving on to voiceover, how did you, or what was the first kind of paid gig that you got for voiceover?
I fell into voiceover really. I was acting on camera and had done staged work, and at the time was making my money waitressing for a restaurant that also had a hot dog stand on the Santa Monica Pier. And so I was literally selling hot dogs on the pier when someone mentioned to me, like, hey, you should get into voiceover. And I knew cartoons and video games, but I had, for some reason, had not really thought of that as an avenue. So I cut a quick demo, and the first job that I booked was actually more than I realized. It was for a company called PopSugar, and it was to do voiceover for a week, voicing their kind of news stories and celebrity gossip and things like that. And at the end of my week with them, they asked me to come back the following week. And that went on for like a couple months. And then I was there 2 years. So my first voiceover job actually ended up being a pretty long contract. And while I was with them, they were wonderful at letting me continue to pursue on camera and voiceover on the side. So I started picking up little jobs here and there, got more serious about it and got an agent, and then started booking commercials and small animation and video games that like indie films and things like that. And now I'm with my lovely team at A3, and then have been working on much bigger names, and just kind of, it's grown as I've grown, which is really, really fun.
Mm-hmm. And having watched some of the videos you posted of your different character tags on Instagram, do you have
my Take Tuesdays?
Yeah. Do you have a particular process for how you developed boy voices?
For boy voices, that's been through a lot of training, and there's a number of people I should thank whose names I'm blanking on, so I'll probably have to post them later. But a lot of great voice actors that I've trained with or done workshops with, voice directors, casting directors who have worked in voice before, who've all really hammered home certain techniques you can get for younger, other gender, things like that. A lot of times it just goes into higher register, which helps because I have a naturally pretty low register. So I've kind of got room to go up. And so when it comes to boy voices, it's typically a little higher and a little like nasalier, because then it brings it back in the throat. So I kind of sound more like I've got snot, and that's always what little boys sound like. So
Yeah. And so then how was your personal story of how you got involved with Genshin?
With Genshin, I auditioned for the project through my agent. They sent me the details, which were all secret at the time, so I didn't even know that's what I was auditioning for. And when I got the call, it was kind of surreal. Pinch Me was not even believing it was true. I was like, I don't know, maybe this is just like a producer session. Maybe they're not 100% yet. But I came in, we did, I think in total it was like 5 or 6 sessions, but booked for like the first 2 or 3. And my voice director was incredible, Chris Vaea, and Gabe and Vincent over at Genshin were wonderful, with kind of leading me into where we're at in the game and what I needed to know and what maybe audiences wouldn't be privy to yet. So there's a lot of fun stuff, and it's been kind of cool to see the speculation on Shenhe before she was announced, what people were suspecting she was going to, what her element was going to be, and what her weapon was going to be, and what she'd look like, and things like that. Was really fun to see, knowing what I knew. And even now, and seeing what Genshin has released, it's really cool to see what the players are still going to get to find out later on, once they play, roll her, or encounter her in the game. I'm very excited.
So it sounds like you were at least a little bit previously aware of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge game, so definitely aware of it. I haven't played it yet, and I'm thinking, like, do I go all out and roll for Shenhe, or I might start at, the freebies. But yeah, I'm definitely excited, and rumor has it maybe they're coming to Switch, which I have, so I'm hoping that that's the case, because then I'll definitely be able to play it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I know there were a lot of fans that were immediately keying in on how well you pronounced her name.
Thank you. It's I've mentioned I have a young son, and I will be up late feeding him. And when I was in the sessions between Liu and Shenhe, I was just like whispering the names as I was feeding him. I was like, this might be his first word. Who knows?
Yeah.
So definitely put a lot of practice and effort into that. So I'm glad that I nailed it.
And what were your first impressions of her character and her lore and everything?
She is an absolute badass. I was very intimidated, to be completely honest. Her backstory and her lore, and I don't want to say too much because I think some is still left to mystery, but she is a force to be reckoned with, and to be asked to voice that was a complete honor and surreal, like I said. So yeah, that my first impression was intimidated, which I think is everyone's first impression of her, to be honest. But there's just so much to her that's really fun. The more I learned, the more I loved.
Mhm. And with how, like you touched on earlier, with how multifaceted and the darkness that she has, could you personally relate to anything about her?
Yeah, I mean, without getting too, I'm a pretty bubbly person, but I think that can be a lot of surface level, and a lot of people, we present one way, and then how we are and behind closed doors, I guess. One thing I'll say about her is that I really took to, is her sort of sense of not knowing where she really belongs, and from the way who she was surrounded by, 'cause she's one, has been around and is one with the the Adepti, but not necessarily feeling like a fit there. And then her draw towards the mortal world, and not sure if that's going to work out either. Like, it just, that sense of one foot in, one foot out, especially being from Florida, living in California, I kind of physically can feel that way sometimes, feeling like I can fit in if I am a certain way, but that might not be my true self. Yeah, that really resonated with me from her. That struggle.
Yeah. And was there any considering all of that and like the binds that she has to keep herself safe, was there any like initial difficulty in getting her character?
Yes, that it was our first session, I think, was mostly kind of working out the kinks, because you just said it there, of like, with the red ropes, like she's bound. So everything she's feeling and everything she's gone through kind of gets this thin veil over it that just sort of softens and dampens it. And so to hit all of the passion and the fer- ferociousness that she has, and then to just keep it right under the surface was tricky, because there's moments where it would slip out. No, we gotta bring that back. And then there were moments where, she's allowed to let just a little sneak through. So I won't say too much on when and why, but yeah, striking that balance of when and how much to reveal very much felt like I was playing poker the whole time.
Yeah.
A lot. Very exhausting sessions. I'll say that too.
And it does sound like it's pretty close to your normal voice, maybe just a little bit more affected.
Yeah, just a little. So my natural voice is probably just a touch lower and a bit more animated. Just naturally speaking, more melodic, I guess, would be not animated, but yeah, a little more up and down. She does not mince words. She means what she says, and she says what she means. And a little higher in the register also.
Some people from the Reddit were just wondering, did you audition for any other characters, or was it always
I did audition for a couple others, but I also was not privy to their names, so I couldn't even, if I wanted to, tell you. But when I got the call for, you don't want to pick favorites, because like if I got cast as any, it would be wonderful. But I'm not gonna lie, when they called and said I had booked Shenhe, I was like, oh yes, yes. I would have been happy with any and all. Genshin makes amazing characters, so I was really excited about all the characters, but she's just so badass. Like, she's so cool.
And do you have a second favorite then?
No, I Shenhe all day, every day. That was what I'll say.
Okay. So some other people just said that since this was your first major kind of project, how did that compare to other work that you had, voiceover work that you had done?
So I've done other big projects, not video games. So the previous video games I've done have been smaller or independent, or more so I've been sort of free range, I guess. So the sessions where I did what I wanted to do, I sent it in, I got notes, and then I would re-record. And those were much smaller, gameplay. So a lot less was going through, whereas, with Shenhe, it was several days. So definitely would not have done that on my own by any means, nor would I have wanted to, especially with the amazing direction that I had. But yeah, I would say is the biggest difference, is that typically I'm sort of, not typically, but in previous games, I'm flying solo and going with my gut, and then maybe a day or week later I'll find out like, nah, that didn't work, this worked, that didn't work, let's change out that, blah blah blah. So this was very hot and heavy all the way through.
Mm-hmm. And I know, sidetracking too, I know that you done a lot of work for audiobooks?
Yes, I've worked pretty extensively in audiobooks. In my opinion, I've voiced probably between 10 and 15 at this point. So, I definitely have further to go in my career, but those have all been within the last 2 to 3 years. So I've been heavy on audiobooks recently, which was nice because with having my son, that was a first job that I kind of jumped back into, which was nice because I can do those sort of on my own time. So between crying sessions and nap times and feedings and things like that.
And can you talk about, because other people I've done who do audiobooks as well, I know it's it can be involved self-discipline process.
Yes. So especially, like I said, with Jacob being born, was long hours of when can I fit it in. A lot of times a choice between he's napping, so do I sleep or do I record? And I chose recording every time. So a little delirious for a lot of it. But I would not change that. It definitely takes a lot of self-discipline, but I'm a pretty self-disciplined person, so that kind of works for me.
And so back on Genshin, are you already becoming friends with the other voice actors?
Yeah, there's one, who voices Official, who I'm a big fan of, Brittany
Brittany,
Cox.
yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing. So I reached out to her immediately just to pick her brain, because I'm new to this level of people being this excited about a project I've done. So, and she was very gracious. And I got to speak a little bit with Yoon Jin's voice actor, Judy Lee. She's awesome. So yeah, I'm slowly starting to get into that world, and get to meet virtually some more of my colleagues who hopefully one day I'll get to meet in real life, COVID pending, and work together again with.
Yeah, of course, it is really cute at the end of the character demo, her interaction with Chang Yun.
Yes. I can't. Auntie? What?
Yeah. Some just more like fun questions that if she wasn't cryo, like what do you think she would be?
Ooh, I don't think. I mean, I feel like cryo's it. Like,
Yeah,
what else could she be? Like, aside from her powers, like thinking just in terms of elements as like people, like she's cold as ice, man. Like she's cryo through and through.
yeah. Oh yeah. Several people just asked what's the favorite line that you've said as her so far, at least that we know.
I mean, I feel like just because the reaction and with Chunggun of mind be purged, world be saved.
Mhm.
Finding out the end of that line, I know has been a big deal to a lot of fans. So that's immediately made it a favorite of mine to know that she was just placing that little puzzle piece down for everybody.
And I know some other voice actors have this kind of process, but was there like a default line that you had to fall back on to like to get into character like right away?
I had different ones for different kind of portions. So Transfiguration jumps out a lot just because that one kind of encapsulates the her
Right.
her but when it came to she just had she has a bit of an arc, I'll say. So knowing when to lean on my adeptus training and existence, and when to be a bit more familiar, I'll say. Yeah, I had different kind of taglines for each of those that I won't share at this time. But
Okay.
Transfiguration, I feel like, was a line that just got me in the headspace of like, she is constantly a moving target.
Right. Yeah. And these aren't questions, or just a lot of people that said that they switched the language to English specifically for your voice.
Thanks, guys.
Another main one, I guess, was on what your opinion was of her, like when she was a little girl, like on what she went through.
She went through something I cannot even fathom. Obviously, it's not something that really could happen to
Right.
me or our plane of existence. But and I'm not quite sure what's fully known about her story as a little girl, so I'm like afraid of being walked into a trap. but I'll just say that like it's heartbreaking,
Right.
and especially now as a parent, it's really heartbreaking to think of a child going through anything, whether literally what she went through or figuratively. Just it's awful, and definitely shapes who she is as now, and her distance, I guess, from people.
Do you think in a certain way too that she's the most emotionally involved you've had to get for something so far now?
That's what I mean, is like she went through so much, and then to have to cover all that up with strength, and to bury that part, and then the red ropes binding her, and things like that. It's like it was you kind of have to have this roller coaster, and then walk off the roller coaster and feel all the feelings you had on the roller coaster, and then go get ice cream and just carry all that with you. And it very tough. It was very tough to get through. I was so exhausted by the end of the sessions from the emotional roller coaster. That's really what it is.
Yeah. And is that also the first case too with voiceover stuff where you've had to get like physical with fighting efforts and stuff?
No, but to that extent, yes.
Yeah.
Not the first time I've had to get physical, and I am always physical in the booth. It gets warm in here, and I'm naturally, I don't know if you can see, I'm using my hands to talk now. Like I'm just a naturally expressive, physically expressive person. But then definitely when I'm playing these roles, there's a lot of action going on. But yeah, this was the first one that for so much,
Yeah.
which is a lot of efforts and a lot of fight scenes and things like that. So
Is there anything else that's upcoming that you can safely talk about, or?
I do have one other video game I can't say anything about,
Okay.
but I am very excited about it. Hopefully someday soon I'll be able to talk about it. And then I guess with the little things, we are finally wrapped with post-production, which is so exciting. And especially because talking about an all-female team, we are global. So my colorist was in London and our composer was in Russia.
Wow.
So it took some time to get all of the post pieces in place. But it's done. It's in the can. And now we'll be sending it to film festivals. And hopefully one day soon I'll be able to shout from the rooftops what we've been accepted to, and if we'll be able to do a premiere, which I'll be I'm very hopeful we'll get to do an in-person premiere. But again, we'll see what COVID allows.
Right.
So.
And this was a funny title. I wanted to ask about Don't Forget to Brush Your Teeth. Looked like it was a horror comedy thing.
Yes, definitely a horror comedy. I think so. It's a definite horror.
Okay.
The makeup team was amazing, and the film itself was so much fun to work on. And it's pretty messed up. That's one of the only films I've kept a prop from. I really shouldn't have. And I don't want to spoil it, but I'll just say the prop does involve the title. And it's pretty gnarly. Definitely would be great for a Halloween costume.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. What about with Face of Evil?
The Face of Evil, that's an old one. And I honestly, when I worked on that one, I'm like trying to remember.
Oh, okay.
That's not great. Or maybe it is that I've worked on so much, but yeah. I'm thinking Good versus Evil, which was a short I did.
It says it's a TV series from 2019.
Oh, yes. They changed the name when we were filming it.
Oh.
It wasn't called The Face of Evil. I don't remember what they had like a pending name. That is a TV show where they recreate true stories. So we reenacted what was going on. And with that one, I'm pretty sure I did a couple with them at the time, and it was spooky, extra not terrestrial, what's the word I'm looking for, like ghosts and stuff. What's the word I'm looking for there? I don't know.
Like poltergeist.
Yeah, like so spooky stuff was happening, and I reenacted a scene where an otherworldly creature reaches out and may or may not get me.
And I was curious. The plot of it sounded really cool with recurrence.
Yeah. So actually, that was a film I did for not a film festival, a film challenge. Really, I'm part of a theater group called Noisy Nest, and they're based in Los Angeles. And at the time, our fearless leader Amanda Bird would pose challenges, and you would create a film based on that. And that one was really fun. I guess it would fall under the category of horror.
Okay.
So in that one, it was basically the premise was what has happened will happen again. And these women going through pretty, nothing is explicitly said, but just creepy stuff happening in the workplace and it repeating itself. And that one was a lot of fun to work on. We had one night to do it. So we were given the keys to the office, the space we shot it in. And it was like, I'll be back in 3 hours and then you're out of here. So
Well,
it was fun because that one was a real run and gun. Like we were on a crunch and we had so much to get through and, so many actors to get their scenes shot. So that one was a lot of fun. I was acting in and doing the sound for. So
well, yeah.
a lot of hats on that one.
And that is interesting. Do you think maybe considering how many horror, darker projects you've been a part of up until Genshin, that kind of helped you for Shenhe, considering?
I never would have put that together, but hindsight
Yeah.
and looking back, like it makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting, right? Because like whenever you're on a path, you don't necessarily know where you're going. And then you look back and you're like, yeah, it's pretty obvious how I got where I got. So yeah, I would say that probably has peppered a lot of the characters along the way. And Shenhe lines right up with that. So
So I guess is there something that you want to say to the Shenhe Reddit?
you guys are amazing. Y'all are fantastic. And I've really felt the love. And in fact, how I found out the release was announced was through people reaching out through Instagram. So that was really humbling and incredible. And the little I've kind of spun through the Reddit page, I'm just really humbled and blown away by how passionate everyone is and how supportive and excited people are. And so thank you. I'm just thrilled and humbled is the biggest word, I guess, to get to talk and answer some of the questions from it, but just to be involved with you guys is really awesome.
Yeah. Well, it is crazy too that I mean every character obviously has their own Reddit community, but I mean some of them that I've done because you're my 15th Genshin interview.
Yeah, you're a pro.
Oh, thank you. Some of them are, it's just crazy how dedicated some of the fan bases are for like each specific character.
Yeah, and it's a little overwhelming. And when I first booked, I'm not gonna lie, I Googled her to see like, oh, like what do people know already? And I almost wish I hadn't, just because then
Yeah.
it felt like a little bit of pressure of like, who people really care. And I don't want to screw that up. I want to make sure I do her justice and do the fans justice. And I felt good about what I did, but always a little, nagging in the back of like, oh, but could it have been better? Would people want more? So I'm blown away by the positive reaction that it's received so far. And I can't wait until people really get in there and play and meet her more. And hopefully, I'm sure that will continue. And I'm just really excited for everybody.
Mhm. I know that of course your career is still blossoming and stuff, but my final question is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
Um, I want my legacy. I I like the she leaves a little sparkle everywhere she goes quote. And honestly, I would love for anybody who's interacted with me, and I think I'm doing it, to feel good after. I want, to feel good about themselves and what they're doing with their lives. And to know that I've encouraged people to go after what they want in life and to kind of lead by example by going after what I want in life and doing so with excitement and positivity and, optimism.
Mhm. And is there any thing that you'd want to say to your younger self?
I won't say the F word, but F it up, F it up,
Okay.
mess it up, just do it. Like that, the fear of failure in younger me and still in me. But yeah, F it up. That's what I would say.
Okay.
Any true voice actor will tell you it is first and foremost acting.
Right.
It is acting first, voice second always. You know, you can say that people who are on TV and in film are just there because they're beautiful, but even they, not always. I mean, Steve Buscemi has made a great career, and I wouldn't call him conventionally beautiful.
Yeah.
But it is acting first always. So I always tell people training is the first thing. Training. I've been training since I was a child. I went to school for this. I have continued my training ever since. So training is always number one. And then I say, you know, go where the joy leads you. What gets you excited, you know? Video games and the characters I get to play vocally that I probably would not get to play on camera is really amazing. The world it's gotten to open up for me.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that we got to do this.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris. And I'm really glad that we got to do this. Thanks so much, Chris.
Yeah. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.